Welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. And Rob, let's drop down and grab clip number 14 if we can. The Alabama restaurant owner. I want to talk a little bit about Obamacare, looking at the Don't Fund Obamacare website started by Senator Mike Lee and Senator Ted Cruz. And signatures now are over 1,045,130 Americans, just like you and me, ordinary Americans, have signed this petition urging our senators, urging our Congress to defund Obamacare. Don't fund it. Put this thing out of our misery. Now, we've talked about this before. It is perfectly doable. Do not listen to any of your congressmen. Do not listen to any of your senators saying that this can't work. We can't do it. We can't stop it. It can be done. The Constitution says no money, zero money, no money can be spent out of the Treasury unless it is appropriated first by Congress. If Congress does not appropriate money to implement Obamacare in this year's continuing resolution, President Obama will have no money to spend implementing it. And if you don't think a mandatory program can be impacted by appropriations bills, all you got to do is mention the word Henry Hyde. The Hyde Amendment, Medicaid is a mandatory program. Hyde Amendment prohibits any money. It's an appropriations bill. It prohibits any money from being spent, federal taxpayer dollars, for being spent performing abortions. That's an appropriations bill. It affects a mandatory program. So don't let them lie to you. They'll try to lie to you, try to get out off the hot seat here. Do not let them do it. And here to help us sort through some of all of this is Amy Kremer. She's been a guest on this program before. She is a political activist, and she is the chairwoman, or chair of the Tea Party Express, as you prefer. Amy was involved in actually launching the Tea Party movement in 2009. Daily Telegraph, the London newspaper, anointed her in October of 2010 as the most influential person in the Tea Party movement. And Amy, welcome back to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Amy, you are either in the state of Mississippi or you are coming to the state of Mississippi. You've got a very important press conference you're going to do tomorrow, and it has to do with this defund Obamacare movement. Tell us about why you're here in this particular state at this particular time.
Well, we're going to be in Mississippi tomorrow. We're holding a press conference tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 p.m. at the Jackson Marriott, and we want people to come out and join us. And this is part of a nationwide effort that Tea Party Express is doing, along with a number of other conservative organizations. There's a defund coalition, and we're all out doing our part to push on members of Congress, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives, to defund Obamacare by passing a continuing resolution that completely funds the government but does not fund Obamacare. And it's pretty simple, Brian. Look, this was passed into law 3 years ago. It is still not ready for prime time. Why are we going to fund this when it's not ready for prime time? And you can see the law actually crumbling upon itself. I mean, just yesterday, the Longshoremen Union pulled out of the AFL-CIO 40,000 members because of Obamacare. And you've heard these unions even say that it's going to destroy the 40-hour work week, which we've all seen happening. When you have Democrats, the Max Baucuses of the world, calling it a train wreck, and then the unions are against it as well, that tells you something right there. And we don't need to fund it if it's not ready for prime time.
Well, and I'm looking at that story, Amy, you're talking about. 40,000 longshoremen quit the AFL-CIO. They've been affiliated with them, for decades. There's a date when they started affiliation with the AFL-CIO. But a big part of it was the fact that the AFL-CIO pushed and pumped Obamacare. And speaking of the way this law is being sort of jerry-rigged as they're rolling it out, got a story unfolding right now, Amy, that the unions have been complaining about the fact that they're not going to get subsidies under the Obamacare plan. They're complaining about this. And now there apparently is some backroom dealing going on where Obama's trying to jerry-rig the rules. So now the union members will be able to be eligible for these taxpayer-funded subsidies, even though clearly they would be illegal under Obamacare as written. So it's just another example of how this thing is so poorly put together that they are continuing to monkey with it and doing so in a way that's flatly illegal.
Well, the fact is, look, I mean, when you have Congress is now exempt from this because President Obama went and did some backroom deal, and now they are exempt from this. They're going to have subsidies added to cover their cost of it. When congressmen and women do not have to put themselves on this health care plan, the IRS doesn't want to be on this health care plan. I mean, it just goes on. And President Obama, 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, says that we're going to delay this employer mandate for a year, of course, until after the 2014 elections, because it's all about their base and it's all about their elections. This law is nothing more than about big government power and control. I don't want to sound cliche, but it's pretty simple. We have the best healthcare system in the world. People come here from all across the world to get healthcare. Where are we going to go? We all remember President Obama standing up and saying, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan, the costs are not going to increase, so on and so forth. Well, all of that has turned out to be an outright lie. I mean, an outright lie. Doctors are retiring. They're no longer accepting Medicare patients, Medicaid patients. I mean, across the board, this is a horrific, horrific policy. And like I said, we have the best healthcare system in the world. You don't need to burn down the house to remodel the living room. And for those that say, oh, then what are you going to do? You're just not going to fund it and yank it out from under everybody? That's the Republicans' answer. No, there are other plans that can be put in place. Tom Price has a plan that can be put in place. There was other legislation all through the ObamaCare battle, but nobody wanted to talk about that. And now we can't even get to that part to have that discussion because everybody wants to talk about, are we going to shut down the government? Brian, we don't want to shut down the government. We want to totally fund the government, but we don't want to fund this bad law that Americans don't want overwhelmingly.
Now I'm looking at a story here, talking here with Amy Kremer of the Tea Party Express. And Amy, Lincoln Journal-Star from Nebraska reporting today that premiums in Nebraska are going to go up anywhere from 21% to 143%. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the cheapest plans that a lot of people were buying in Nebraska will be illegal under Obamacare. And so the insurance rates, the premium rates are going to have to go through the roof, 21% to 143%, because those fairly inexpensive plans, which are very popular, are now illegal. Here's a story out of Ohio indicating that insurance rates there are going to go up 34% in Ohio. So everywhere you look, the premiums are going through the roof. I've got a story here about a businessman named Link Christensen. He employs people that make awnings. So these are people that sew awnings, canopies, tarps, and industrial fabrics. So these are the little people that President Obama says he cares about. And he says the same deal here. They have a health plan that his employees have been on, fairly inexpensive. That plan will be illegal because Obamacare is going to mandate all of these therapies and treatments be included in every insurance plan, whether the insured want them or not. It's going to double the price of premiums. And he says, look, what's going to happen is all of my employees now are going to lose their insurance, every single one of them, because none of them will be able to afford the more expensive health care plan that will be the only one that will be legal under Obamacare.
Exactly. And this is the thing, we heard 2 weeks ago, Delta Airlines said that this is going to cost them $100 million. Well, where's that cost going to be passed on? To the consumer. You and I, those of us that travel all the time. I'm getting ready to get on a Delta airplane today. Forever 21, this young women's clothing store, a couple of weeks ago, they put all of their employees back to part-time with no benefits. I mean, this is going to continue to happen. And as open enrollment happens for health care policies, with companies, no matter what their size is, usually it's in the fall, we're going to hear more and more stories about this. UPS are no longer covering spouses. University of Virginia, same thing. I mean, this is going to continue. We're going to hear these stories. I just don't understand why we should fund this when it's not what the American people want. Polling continues to show that. And this whole thing where Congress is now exempt from it, the employer mandate has been pushed back for a year. I mean, why is it that the average American people we have to pay for this when they're exempt from it. What's good for thee but not for me? I mean, we are not the peasants, and they're not the elite. They work for us. We hire them. We can fire them. And you want to talk about right there in Mississippi, I mean, your Senator, Roger Wicker, put his name on this letter with Mike Lee and then withdrew it. And I'm not sure why he withdrew it, but
well, you know, I had him on my program, Amy, to ask him about that, and he was very evasive. He said, well, it wouldn't work. He couldn't really explain why it wouldn't work. And you've also got Thad Cochran, who's a senator from Mississippi. He's not signed on to this. We've got a congressman. I think Steve Palazzo in Mississippi has signed the letter, but to my knowledge, Greg Harper has not, and Alan Nunnally has not. So you got, even in Mississippi, a relatively conservative state, you've got Republicans that will not get on board the defund Obamacare express.
Right. And, you know, this is what I say to that, Brian, is that the Mitch McConnell, John Boehners of the world, they have been in Washington too long, and it's their policies. I want everybody to understand this is not just because of Democrats. The situation we're in with our economy and in everything that's going on right now, Republicans are to blame as well. And we have been doing things the way of Mitch McConnell and John Boehner for way too long. How about we try it a new way? These young guys that are young blood, fresh blood in Washington, and actually are out there with the people across America and in touch with the people across America. They're actually holding town halls with their constituents and hearing from them. How about we try it their way, and let's see if it works for a change. And I commend Mike Lee and Ted Cruz and these guys that are taking this drum and marching with it, because we need more like them, and they all need to get on board to defund Obamacare.
You know, I saw a story, Amy, left-wing website saying that Ted Cruz has single-handedly destabilized government. Destabilized was the word they used. They blamed it on Ted Cruz. One man has destabilized government. Right. And I know, Amy, when I read that, my response was the same as yours. What we need are 534 lawmakers just like him. Our guest has been Amy Kremer, the chair of the Tea Party Express, and she's here in Mississippi, traveling all over the country, encouraging our lawmakers, don't fund Obamacare. Amy, thanks for taking time to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
Amy Kremer, Tea Party Express, back in 2. Stay with us.